Welcome. You have joined Christine, Olson, and I as we are sitting here talking. Christine and I have known each other for about 35 years, and she is a realtor in South Florida, anchored out of the Palm Beach County area. And thank you for joining us. So it's been a while.
It's been a long while.
I know. Can you believe where we're at in our lives?
I love it.
Like, it would have been so different, right? Had, like you said earlier, like if I had stayed the path.
Yes.
Right? But sometimes we take that risk and we jump ship, and I did.
And I so admire you for it.
Well, I admire you. You stayed true, and you had kids, and you went that direction. So when you're on the outside looking in, I think sometimes it's kind of how it looks. There are positives on both sides.
And what a gift it is to reconnect with you and come back all these years.
Oh my God, I'll never forget when after all of those years you reached out, I was like, oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God. And then the last couple years that we've been reconnected, or how long ever, it's been a couple years now.
I know.
That's gone so fast. So the first 33 went just as fast. It was crazy. I know it.
It's great to be here.
I know it is. It is great to have you here. It's back in this house that looks so completely different than it did all those years ago, right?
I love it.
My home. So you came with a question today, right?
Yes.
Cool. What are you thinking?
Talking about getting over your fears of change, and change is inevitable. The only thing that is constant are death and taxes. Yeah. But you have intuition, you have gut feelings, and getting over the fear and moving forward and trusting in those.
Yeah. Change is as inevitable as death and taxes, because it's a given. Right? So yeah, there's a lot that goes into that fear that we have of change, because it's the unknown. And we aren't sure how to navigate the unknown waters, right? And it's funny because you and I were kind of talking about that before we sat down, and my kitchen, and going through the devastation of Wilma, and talk about a change. I saved my patio but lost my kitchen. And so it's like, change happens, and it's going to always happen. And change is always going to happen in a way that moves us on closer to our dreams. Our ego is going to want to stop it or change it, or hesitate. That's the fear you're talking about, right? The fear of that that unknown, where how am I going to have control, as people like to call it, or how am I going to really be able to predict and stay safe, and what if it goes the wrong way, and what if, and the anxiety kicks in, and then, oh my God, what's this going to be like? So I do think that everybody can really relate to the whole idea of that fear of change. And then how do we get to a place of moving beyond? We perceive this life in a past, a present, and a future. And we do that because the past is where we learned fear. And fear is what we're here to master, right? In general. That's a very general kind of statement, but it's truth to it. So we use the past to heal, not to relive it over and over and over and over again, to heal it. So if a pattern of the past is actively being seen in your life over and over and over again, it's there to tell you, you're here to change this. Mm-hmm. You're here to master this, right? So each of us will master some of our challenges and accept others, right? So as you're listening to us talk, think about your challenges. Think about the way you feel about change in your own life, because there have been times where change was fun and times where change was scary. But then ask yourself, what made you afraid, right? So, because that fear is something you learned from the past. That fear of the unknown you learned from the past. When you were 1 to 2 to 3 years old, you weren't worried about that, because we didn't know that anything existed outside of what we could see. So everything was magic. A person came into the room, magic, they were here, then poof, they were gone, then poof, they were here, then poof, they were gone. There was no consistency.
Right.
We weren't worried about change, because our entire world was nothing but constant change, where we had literally no control over it.
Right.
So at 2, those terrible 2s, when we start to learn that our voice has an effect on the world, we get all excited about that. So that's that egocentricity. We've now got Spot joining us. So that's that egocentricity that is of the 2-year-old. because now they see themselves in the center of the world and having an effect on that world. So that's them in the middle, and they can create change on everything. So the world revolves around them because they're just learning how to have effect on the world and create change. And it's from that little tiny point that we grow. And we always want to have that kind of control over the change around us, but we don't. So then we have this thing in life called surrender, where we have to learn to lean back against what we trust and what we know is in great order, and let it carry us through those times, right? Give me your thoughts before I go over to what you said. Anything else? Any thoughts?
Keep going.
Okay. So you mentioned your intuition and your gut, right?
Right.
We learn to doubt that in ourselves. And that's a learned thing, to doubt it. It's not learned that it's there. That's your wisdom. That's your knowing. Not your knowledge. That's your knowing. That's that gut, right? So when the gut is saying, fly, but you won't jump, that's your ego. Your ego is telling you don't jump. But your wisdom and your knowingness is saying jump, you're going to fly. And so when you listen to that and you jump, you fly. When you don't listen to it, you'll always wonder what would have happened if you jumped. And then that doubt continues to grow, and the worry can continue to grow. Does that make sense? So the intuition component is really important because you want to listen to that knowingness that's inside you, right? It is what guides the manifestation. If you can then put in alignment that gut feeling with the way it would look in real life, meaning physical life,
right?
Because I think the real life is not the physical life, but another story, another day. So when you take that and you really understand that in that awareness of that gut feeling, there is an image, a feeling, an experience that it's attached to that you're looking for.
Right.
If you can keep those two pieces not attached, but congruent and alive, then all of a sudden what's happening is you're creating a manifestation of the outcome, right?
Makes sense.
So as a listener, if you go back to the interview with Holly Green, we spoke specifically about manifestation and intuition and how they tie together versus premonition, which is just a recounting of what's about to happen. But when you look at the intuition and how it goes with manifestation, it's very, very powerful, very, very powerful piece of your puzzle. So it is important to really listen to yourself, but you learn to doubt yourself somewhere along the line. So ask yourself where you learned to doubt yourself. Where did you learn to doubt the intuition? For most of us, that started very early because society teaches us, no.
Right.
Right?
And especially women.
Especially women, because we're so intuitive. And it's threatening.
Yes.
Intuition is female energy. Did you know that?
I can certainly understand it.
Right.
Interesting. So, do we teach it to our sons?
Men
or our
have
spouses?
it. Male energy has it. Male energy is dominant in a heterosexual male, but not necessarily always. We all have both male energy and female energy, but sometimes we lead with a dominant. My dad was a very strong male, but had a lot of strong female energy. Very gentle, very creative, it was a very strong but gentle male. My mother was and is a woman, and very much a woman, but a lot of very strong male energy. So they flip-flopped those energies in their relationship. And you'll always see a balance of the energies in the relationship, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the intuitive part is definitely part of the female energy.
Makes sense.
It does make sense, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It does. It just feels really, really right. So what are you thinking about that? Where does that take you inside?
I like what you said about, really, you're saying embrace change, go with your gut.
You're going to be
have and trust that the congruency will lead you
in the right direction.
in the right direction on the path of change.
Yeah.
And not fight it.
Absolutely. Right. Who and what can you lean against to carry you through the fear of the change?
Right.
That's a question that we answer within ourselves, right? And then you do so. And if you don't have anybody, you've got to learn to lean against yourself and whatever that spirit or higher power is that you believe in. How do you really trust in that? This is where I think a lot of religions fall short, because there's not enough of a personal relationship. It's still a very external relationship, but when you have that personal relationship, you'll learn to trust in life and just lean back and ride with it.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But very simple.
Life is very simple. It gets complicated with our fear. It doesn't mean that it's easy to master. It's not easy to master, but it's simple to master. It's got very few truths, very few things that are, that this is about. Okay. Spot, you're uninvited on the couch. You're too squiggly wiggly. Okay. So we're going to put you down because you're interrupting the show.
You want all the attention.
So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's when we look at that inner space of power, that very graceful power that's inside us, and learning to trust in ourselves, we ask different kinds of questions. Like, when we think about the change we wish to make, is it tapping on one of our deepest fears, right? I have a very dear friend who is dating a guy and has been for like 6 years or 5 years or something, I don't know how many years. And she really doesn't want to be with him. But she's scared to death to leave him because she's never ever in her life, 60 some odd years, been alone. And so it's very scary to think about being alone. But that's because the relationship she has with herself is very limited, right? She doesn't know what that relationship is about inside herself. If she knows what that relationship is like with her, then she comes home every day to somebody because she's always there. But if she doesn't have that relationship with her and she's still that externally, focused person
on the other person,
then that other person needs to be there. And making that change elicits that fear of being alone and then causes a stop in the way she thinks about it, right? Mm-hmm. So when you know you want it, when you can feel it, when the intuition is in alignment, but it's not happening over here, there are fears, challenges in this life that need to be addressed. So without judging it, you say, okay, what am I afraid of here? Say I do this, what would it look like? And let the angst inside go, and go, okay, that would cause me anxiety, and that would cause me anxiety. Okay, so, right? And it's funny because sometimes change is stuff that brings that stuff up. But I look at my own life, right? And it's going to be a change when the business really starts to go boom with the virtual courses and the membership and everybody is interacting as a community. And that change is a completely different world for me than what I'm doing right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited about it, but it's still a complete unknown. I have my vision, I have my love and my passion and how excited I am about it, but it's a complete unknown.
Right.
So sometimes we're in it, the change is imminent, we're headed in that direction, but we have to stay on top of how it's affecting us on the inside.
Right.
Because the change is still going to affect us on the inside. And I have found that along the way of growing that business there have been times of hesitancy. It's like, well, what is that? What is that hesitancy? And I follow it back. Okay, where is it coming from? What's it about? And I find out what it's about, and I work that on out of the way.
You're facing your fear of success, because sometimes you can be your own worst enemy.
It can be fear of success.
Yeah.
It can be fear of, I'm going to call it fame, because people have to find out who you are, right? So is that happening? Is that really going to happen? Doubt that you're allowed to be that one, right? You've got all kinds of things that can come up in that.
Right.
And if you're not willing to look at them, yeah, you're not going to do it. You're just going to like shut the door.
Right.
Which a lot of people do, right? We don't have to have anything, but if we have that willingness to look inside ourselves and wonder what it is that causes the fear, we can change anything inside ourselves so that we are not afraid of the change outside here. Because we're not as afraid of the changes on the inside because they morph. We're more afraid of the changes out here because they seem more abrupt, I guess I'm going to say. You know, like uh-oh, it brings up the fears in here. But when we think about changing those fears into other places, that's not scary. What's scary, well, it is for some people, but it's not usually scary. What's scary is out here, right?
Right.
The inability to control what's out here.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I hope that's making sense to you as you're listening, too. I think that you probably have also had times in your life where change is something you really wish for and you desire, but something is holding you back. Maybe you know you're afraid of something. Maybe you don't know what you're afraid of, but you know something's holding you back, or you know you're sabotaging what you're trying to do and you don't know why. And I'm sure you also know friends and family members and other people who are going through the same fears, because this is so, so real for all of us. So don't hesitate. And I would really deeply appreciate it if you share this video with anyone struggling with the whole idea of change and the fear that goes along with it, because it's not an isolated experience. I think just about everyone I've ever spoken to has fear of change.
100%.
Yeah.
Nobody can go through life without experiencing change and
so,
fearing it.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can master that fear so that you're no longer afraid of it, but you're going to feel that fear at some point, because we are conditioned to want things to stay the same.
100%.
Did you see the movie Groundhog's Day?
Yes.
So in Groundhog's Day, he has to go back through the same day. I don't even know how many times. Like, if you don't really know what's going on, it can be boring as hell. But he goes back through the day, back through the day, back through the day. What it really shows us is that inside, we are so committed to consistency out of our fear of change that we manifest the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, because we don't want to see the nuances that would create change. So we do condition ourselves to want everything to remain the same. That fear of the unknown brings up the fear of destruction. That fear of destruction says I can't stop it and I can't do good enough. And so all of our deepest fears can be brought up in that point in time.
That's a really good analogy. So true.
How many times in your own life, without sharing too much personal, how many times have you awakened and known that the day is going to be just another day, like every other day, but the wish is for something so different?
Right.
And what do we do to create the wish?
Right. It's all up to us.
Right. Right?
Yes, 100%.
And don't put pressure on yourself when you say it's up to us. Bask in that. You can make it anything you wish to make it.
Right.
It's not up to you, it's because of you, right? It can be anything you wish it to be. You just have to see it, know it, and feel it, and believe in it enough to take that first step. And it doesn't have to be a leap off a cliff, it just has to be that first step.
Right.
So with whatever you're thinking on the inside that brought the question to the table, right now ask yourself, just quietly, what's one step I can take tomorrow? Something small. That moves my needle just enough towards my dream, right? You've heard that talk that if you just 1 degree, just shift 1 degree, that down the road you're like miles apart, whatever. So what is one little thing that you can do?
Right.
I don't drink enough water. So I bought the small bottles of water that I like and put them in the refrigerator at work. Because I know and I'm a big freak about plastic, but my health and water were really important. So I bought the small bottles, because if I added even that much water to my day, it's that much more than I'm drinking now.
Right.
And it's doable.
Very
right?
doable.
And then once I drink that, now maybe I'm going to want more water, and I'll add more, and I'll add more, and I'll add more. So what's one little itsy bitsy thing you can do? And then can you commit to yourself to do that starting tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Building a habit.
Yeah, at some level it is building a habit. But again, you're only going to build a habit when it comes to changing your life. We're not talking about flossing your teeth here. So you're only going to build you're going to build the habit if it's congruent with your emotional self, the truth of who you are, right?
That makes sense.
Otherwise, you're going to be at a conflict inside. So allow yourself to feel that inside peace. If on that first little step there's congruence and it feels right, then keep doing it, and you'll know when it's time to add one more little piece that feels right. Don't worry about time.
And congruency makes all the difference in the world.
You better believe it. Because too often we do things by expectations. I don't remember who we talked about with expectations. Critically important. Was that, who did we talk to about? We just did a podcast with somebody on expectations. And when we operate from expectations, it was the one with Michelle. Because when you set a goal that is anchored with expectations, those come from external sources. And there's always going to be an incongruence to self and what self wants. And so you'll set these goals, and you'll find that it is like pulling your own tooth,
right,
to try to make it through, because you really don't want to do that.
Right.
Because it's not a match. So we have to get used to what are the expectations that we're putting upon the situation, because we learned those expectations. That's not coming from the truth inside us. So yes, it will be very, very fluid unless there is an expectation entwined, and then you want to tease that out, find that congruence, and then move forward in the fluidity.
Beautiful.
That make sense?
Yes, 100%. And when they're not congruent, then you feel like you're failing because you're trying to meet an external expectation, and that's serving you no purpose.
It's not, but it is at least letting you know what the fear is that's holding you back.
Right.
It's that fear of not meeting somebody else's expectations.
You're right.
And not knowing how to meet your own dreams. You're putting the expectations ahead of your dreams. So if in fact your fear of change is because you're going against somebody else's expectations, find that gas pedal and just right through it. Drive like Kristen. Do not pass go. Straight to the destination. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So we looked today, we're talking about the fear of change, but we're talking about how sometimes that fear of change is it can come from myriad sources inside each of us. It can come from the need to be in control, the fear of being out of control, not believing that it's going to take you to a good place, just the unknown and feeling so ungrounded. And that vagueness brings up anxiety. Of course, I didn't say this until now, but it brings up anxiety, and that anxiety then takes you down all kinds of wicked paths. But so you've got that fear, right? We talked about how then also when you talk about making change, if you're really following your intuition and your gut, you know there's a match to you. So once you know the intuition is there and the gut is there, the match is there. So now what's holding you back? You could be held back by it's not a match to expectations. You've learned to doubt yourself. You don't know how to not doubt yourself. You don't know what's going on there. And so you're going to come back through and look at those issues. And then, of course, we ended by talking about, of course, I'm going to forget what we ended up just talking about, which was the, what did I just say to you at the end? Knowing if you're going after something, well, something else we said is if you're going for, you're not as afraid of change on the inside of you because that feels more doable, but it's the stuff on the outside that seems like it could get out of control and go off and do something to you. That's that fear of being destroyed by the external stuff that you can't control. So I'll think of it in a minute, but that last part was really, really important because as you move beyond the expectations that are put upon you and you listen to that inside voice, all of a sudden it's going to become really clear what it is that's right for you. And then you have to believe that you're allowed to have that. Because whatever it is, whether it's a whole new career, a whole new life, a whole new wardrobe, it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever that change is, that change is coming from you, it's about you, and that's an expression of you. And when it feels so right, when you go out into the dream, then the only thing stopping you are the incoming fears or expectations. And so definitely you want to hold yourself to your own truth and not what everybody else wants.
Wisdom. Words of wisdom.
They're out there for all of us.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. That was awesome. I thank you for joining us. We both really appreciate having you listen in and being a part of our talk. So please enjoy your own life and all that you have and your dreams, and to believe that you can make any change that you wish to make as long as you believe in it and as long as you're willing to surrender into it and let life help carry you through to the other side. May all of your dreams come true. And until next time, may the magic be yours. Thank you so much for joining me, and please visit KristenBomas.com, where you can easily access all of my social circles.